So we're going to talk about setters and getters. Just to let you know, I'll probably mention this before each segment. I'm not going to cover everything. I'm just going to quickly go through them. I'll probably make lots of mistakes. I've been fooling around with this video recording software for a little bit, and it can take forever if you try and make it perfect. So I decided just to go ahead and see kind of what happens. But I do want to make them quick. I don't want to make really long chapters. So I won't be covering everything in detail. If you have questions about the concepts, let me know and we'll discuss them. So what I want to do now is talk about setters and getters. You should know what they are. We're going to review them real quickly here. You see them all the time in Android. There's tons and tons of methods that start with set and get, but I just wanted to quickly review them here. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to go up here to File in Eclipse and then do New and then Java Project, and we'll call it setters and getters, and then I'll just hit finish right away. Now what I usually do is I create an app driver class, and this will be the class that has your main method in it. So I'm going to do when you create a new project, here's your folder structure right here that Eclipse sets up for you, and you have a source folder. It's an SRC folder, and that's where all your code goes. So if I right click on that folder and do new class, now this is the class that's gonna have our main method in it. I call it app driver. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, but it'll be the class that runs the app for us, and it'll just have the main method in it. And so here's a thing with Eclipse. I just named it app driver here, and in Eclipse you can save yourself a little bit of trouble if you check this off, and this will write the stub for the main method for you. So if you just click this checkbox right here and hit OK, here it is. Here's our main method, and we can go ahead and start writing code. Now we need a sample class here, so I'm going to create another class. So I'm going to create a class called car. We'll just use car for this example. All classes must have an uppercase name. Its superclass is going to be the mother of all classes, the object class, and I'll just hit finish right here, and we're going to create a property called ID. So I'll make it private, and it's going to be an int and ID, and now it's private, so that means that it won't be visible outside of this class. Now what does that mean? I'll show you what it means here. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to my app driver, and I'm going to create an instance of this car. So I'm going to do car C1 equals new car. Now if I do C1 dot ID, I'll get an error. Now let's just try and print that out. Let's do system.out.println C1.id. Now here's a little error message over here in Eclipse, and it's saying that the field car.id is not visible. Well, it's because it's private. If I make this public, then it will be visible. Now you can see my error went away and everything's fine. But by convention, we want to make our instance variables such as ID private, and we use setters and getters to access them, to change them or to access them. So here's what I'm going to do here. I put it back to private, and then I'm going to make a public method that with a void return value, and it's going to be called set ID, just like this. And it's going to take a parameter, and the parameter is going to be an int, and we're going to make that the name of the parameter is going to be ID as well. And setter will usually look like this. This.id equals ID. Now, we've had some confusion in the past with some people not understanding what's going on here with this. By convention, we name this parameter the same as the instance variable that we're changing. So we actually have two versions of ID. One is the parameter and one is the instance variable. So how does Java know the difference between them? Well, when you use this.id, it will know whenever you're using this, you're always talking about the instance variable. So now we could change this parameter, some ID, and now it's not ambiguous. And maybe this would be better, but it's not the convention that people use. So in this case, you wouldn't need this because there's only one version of ID. There's no copies floating around, so it's clear. So this would be just fine, but you don't see this by convention. In Java, what you see is this. All right, enough about that. Let's make the getter for it too. Public, this is going to return an int, and we're going to call it get ID. And we'll do simply return this.id, or since it's not ambiguous in this case, there is no other version of ID to deal with it. Up here in the setter, we had the parameter, which was an ID, but in the get ID, you can just do it like this. So you'll see this a lot, and you'll hopefully have done this a lot. So I'm just going to save this, go back over to app driver, and now we've got our error message back because we turned that back into a private variable, and it's not visible because it's private. It's only visible within the car class for code that's in the car class. We're in the app driver class, so it's not visible. But we have our getter here, so we can do get ID. Now the ID, we haven't set a value, so it's an integer, and integers default to 0. And so let's use our setter up here before we print it out. Let's do c1 dot set ID, and let's set it to 10, and then print it out, or I'll run the app. So to run the app here, you just click this run button, and then you'll see the output in the console down below, down here. So hit the run button, and you can see down here there's my output. Now I want to show you why we use setters and getters. Let's say somebody is using our car class in their application, and they do this. They set it to -10. But for the purposes of our cars, you shouldn't have a negative ID for a car. When the cars roll off the factory line, they get a sequential ID. We can think of it like as their VIN number. I don't know if this works the same for VIN numbers, but you know, as each car comes off, they get an ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so forth. So a negative ID is not valid, and this is exactly why we don't make the ID instance variable public, because there's nothing right now that's stopping me from making the ID -10, which is invalid. So what I want to do, I'm just going to save this here. I'm going to go back to my car class here, and I'm going to write some validation code in my setter. So I'm going to do if ID is less than or equal to 0, then I'm not going to write the code for this, but we'd throw an error, some sort of error saying, hey, you can't set the ID to a negative number. But anyways, that code would go in here. So that's a very quick rundown on setters and getters. One last thing about setters and getters. Now Eclipse has a feature for us that'll save you some time, and this feature is also available in Android Studio, but it can automatically generate our setters and getters for us. So I'm going to create another instance variable, and this time it's going to be a string, and I'm going to call it color. Okay, so I've got my private color instance variable, but I don't have setters and getters for it. If I go over to source and do generate getters and setters, click that, and then now what this little box will show all of the instance variables that don't have setters and getters. So you can see ID is not showing up because it's already got the getter and setter, but color is available here. So I'm going to check this one and then hit OK. And then you'll notice that right here it created the setter and getter for us in this using the same conventions that I discussed earlier. So we've got our color parameter here, and they're using this dot color so that we know that the color right here refers to our instance variable because it's got this prefix before it. So I can't remember what the shortcut for this is in Android Studio, but you can do the same thing. It'll save you some time, and hopefully it'll ensure that you won't make any syntax errors that you have to deal with later.